Welcome into a new Buff Stampede Radio. Adam Munsterteiger, the publisher of BuffStampede.com, joined by our favorite guest on the show, the People's Champ, William Gardner. I appreciate you for taking time out on a weekend. We got to recap this first week of preseason camp.
I don't know about all that. Might be the People's Chump or something. It's hard to say sometimes. How's it going for you?
It's good, you know, and I'm fortunate that Coach Prime has his media team with Dion Jr. and Darius Sanders and Neely that provides that extra footage that, you know, we haven't been able to see in recent years since they locked the media out. I don't feel like I'm working quite enough, honestly, because we don't have media availability every day. So it's been a little bit of an adjustment there. But I tell you, walking up to that first practice and just hearing the sounds of a practice, like it gave me goosebumps. And so that part of it is pretty fun to get back into.
Yeah, I miss that new feeling every year of starting over and getting back to it after everything that's been going on all summer. And it seemed like a slow, long summer, and you know, the new camp doesn't kick off the way it did maybe 10 years ago when you could all show up and actually watch it and see what was going on. But it's still exciting, and with Coach Prime's team, there's still so much that comes out on the video and such that there's enough to see out there to, first of all, to get an idea about what's going on, but also to stoke the madness of all the fans watching who take one snippet of video and run with it.
That's part of the fun of the preseason, right? It's like, kind of an extension of spring ball almost, where hope springs eternal, and you just look for reasons to get excited and
or not excited as your personality is bent.
Well, it just we've gone through so much as a Colorado fan base, those that follow the Buffs pre-Coach Prime, that we really should be more of a jaded bunch than we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was talking on the board today. People were saying, was the offensive line getting dominated? They ain't even had pads on, man. Nobody's been dominated by anything one way or the other. Oh, I saw Jordan Seaton get beat on a drill. Is he going to be any good? It's one damn drill, man. Everybody out there gets beat. So,
I will say, though, that I'm a little bit more bullish on this defense, and I totally get that early on in camp, it's the defense that's going to have that early advantage until the offense gets its timing down. But I got to admit that I've let a little bit of it seep into me, that where I think this defense has a chance to be pretty salty, whereas I don't know, going into camp, I still am a little bit I want to see it before I believe it type of thing. But it seems like the upgraded talent is really showing on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very clear that there's a lot more talent on the defense than we thought. And I think there's some guys that are going to jump out at us that we haven't really talked about much all summer, you know, making some of the guys we sort of didn't give a lot of talk to at linebacker or defensive end and things like that. And I think that talent is really starting to show itself out. And again, it's easier for a defense to just play with their hair on fire, and the offense kind of has to get their timing down and all that sort of stuff. But by the same token, sort of the interview with Shermer yesterday was very exciting. Maybe it was the day before, I don't know, but he seems to be rejuvenated and excited to be here. And, you know, that goes a long way. People don't think those things are important, but it's as important for the coaches to be excited to be here as the players, because they all feed off of one another. And, you know, when your coaches are not don't want to be there, you know, players feed off that, and they go the wrong direction. So I'm excited to see what happens. I think we've got a lot to go and look forward to on both sides of the ball. That's my initial impression after 1 week, is I'm more excited than I was a week ago.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Shermer, and him being rejuvenated, like you said, is very clear. When he's had good players around him, he's been a pretty successful coach. When he's had bad players around him, he's struggled as a coach. And so that's the part of kind of the criticism of him taking over that makes me chuckle a bit there. He's got Shedeur Sanders at quarterback. I think we saw a little bit positive in that last month last year. Now, he told me yesterday that was not really a springboard for him as a play caller at the college level, because that was not his offense. But you could tell that before Shador got knocked out against Wazoo that they were playing at a pace that suited him better. I thought.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that was a weird situation and a difficult situation for him to come into, and to have the old offensive coordinator still on staff, and I don't know, man, that's just not ever going to work. Just between the personalities of human beings and what have you. But to be able to put it all in on his time in the off season, I think makes a huge difference, and he knows what he's got. So it's exciting, and I think he's a guy with enough experience to really put people to use. I think the other thing that's jumped out at me, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but Will Shepherd, man,
Yeah.
holy crap. And then that running back room, they got some players, man. I don't know which one's going to wind up on top. I don't know. Maybe Charlie stays on top, but I got to tell you, my early money is on Agustov. He's shown some things in there, but every single one of those guys has shown some things, and that wide receiver room is going to be sick. And Sam Hart looks like he can fill the role. So lots of weapons on offense.
Yeah. Gary Harrell said, just like he did last preseason, that he wants two backs to rotate. Now, I mentioned this in an analysis video with Brian last year, based off how much they struggled running the football, how little they ran the football. There just really was never that two-man rotation that really showed itself. But it's going to be tough for him to just settle on two guys this year, it feels like.
Yeah, and I think those guys, and that's good. I think if guys are pushing to get playing time and pushing those two guys, and he's going to have to go with other guys. And I've never thought it was really realistic to just go with two guys. Well, not for a long time anyway. That used to be the thing back in the day. You had one guy, but these days, he's talked about. I don't know if he's talked about it or Shermer has talked about it. Somebody has talked about it in last week about using the different skill sets of each guy, and I'm trying to think who keeps repeating that kind of thing about using the skill sets of the guys you got, and each one of those running backs is slightly different.
Livingston said that a bunch about the defense.
Right, yeah, and so I think the same applies on offense, and there's different situations where each one of those guys is going to excel. So I don't think he'll narrow it down to two, but that's it's not my group. We'll see what happens.
And the back that can average 4.5 yards per carry is actually going to get on the field more than the back that can get 5 yards a carry if they're better in pass protection. I think that is very clear that, across the board, it's not just the offensive line that needs to protect number two, it's the running back as well.
Yeah, and that comes down to both knowing the scheme and being able to make adjustments on the run, but also having the ability and the desire. Quite frankly, pass blocking for running backs is as much a desire thing as anything. Being able to, you can't put a guy. It really handcuffs you if you put a guy in on either side of the ball who can only do certain things, right? Because now with that guy in there, you have to telegraph what you're. After a while, other teams watch your film and they know, well, if that guy's in there, they can only do these things, right? And that really cuts your options off as a coach.
And I hesitate to say this because I don't want it to be like a knock on a guy that left the program, but wasn't that kind of the problem with Dylan Edwards?
Yeah, I think
he was that guy.
Yeah, well, and he got used and abused in pass protection a couple of times. Sometimes because he wasn't able to do it, and sometimes because I don't think he really knew who to pick up. But he's not a guy that you're going to run between the tackles substantially, and he just is not that kind of a running back that's going to be good in pass protection. And I think that's why Hankerson and Wilkerson got more carries. Frankly, they got more playing time.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You're never going to develop Dylan Edwards. I don't think we're knocking on the guy. I think we're just being honest. You're not going to ever develop him into that kind of a running back. I think like somebody mentioned on the board, he should be more like a utility guy, like a Draylon Miller or something that you flank out and put out in the slot, and sometimes you run him on a sweep or whatever. But quite clearly, if you put Dylan Edwards behind the quarterback, the defense is going to take some cues from that, and they're going to do some different things.
And just to add on there, what Dylan Edwards did against TCU was like artwork on a football field. Like he's really, really, really good at what he does well. And it is a thing of beauty. And so I hope he does well at Kansas State. I definitely don't wish anything bad on him, but I think, especially with this new offense they've implemented with Pat Shermer, where you're going to have more designed runs as opposed to RPOs, that having more every down backs out there is actually going to be an improvement. But they got to go out there and show it this fall. You said August Dave. I said that earlier this week. I feel like I'm flopping like a fish though with my running back positions. I had Michael Welch on my buffstampede.com depth chart predictions. Dallin Hayden talked to us yesterday. I mean, Charlie's still running with the one. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all over the place with my running back positions right now.
Yeah,
Predictions right now.
Just to finish off that conversation, I don't feel that we lose very much by losing Dylan Edwards. Obviously, you like to have, I don't know, you can only use so many weapons, right? And it's not like we don't have other guys that have the skill set of Dylan Edwards and more, quite frankly. So it'd be nice to have him, sure. But, guys that we have coming back already give us those same kinds of weapons anyway.
Today's episode is brought to us by Macaulay Capital Fractional CFO Services. Is your business looking for financial guidance and support but not yet big enough to hire a full-time CFO? Well, we have a solution for you. Hiring a fractional CFO who can work with your business on a part-time basis. You get the benefit of having a seasoned financial expert on your team without the commitment or expense of a full-time hire. And here's the best part. It's likely that a partnership with Macaulay Capital will be a win-win situation, meaning that your business will make more money from the guidance of a fractional CFO than the total cost of partnering with us. For more information or to set up a meeting, please visit MacaulayCapital.com. That's MCCAULEY Capital.com.
Ethan Boyd is no longer in the CU football program. He joined the mix as a transfer from Michigan State and didn't stick around going into camp. This isn't much of a loss aside from the sense that just numbers wise on the offensive line, you'd like to have a couple more scholarship guys, but the guys that they do have, they can count on more. That's kind of across the board. They're going to be probably 8 or 9 under the 85 scholarship limit, but the guys that they have are more quality depth.
Well, I think people are caught up in those numbers because of the way it used to be, and I think everyone needs to get over it and hello, it's 2024, man. It's like you used to have 15 or 16 offensive linemen because 3 or 4 of them were first-year guys or redshirt freshmen who weren't ready to play, or they were projects or whatever. There's 10 guys that we have on the field. There's 10 guys at least on this roster that I look at that I would be comfortable putting out there, and I've never seen a season really go beyond 8 or 9 guys. Even with a rash of injuries, if you're down past number 10, whoever you got there is probably not going to be ready anyway. So I don't really see it as that big of a deal. I think Boyd leaving is better for him and better for us. It seems quite clear, and I don't think it's a knock on the kid. This ain't for everybody, man. I don't think most people out there have any idea how hard it is to be a football player at this level and go to school and do all the things you got to do. And I've had lots of guys with his talent or higher who just didn't love the game. There's nothing wrong with that. And you got to have a love and a need for the game to go through what you got to go through at this level. And if they don't have that, it's better off for everybody that they're not there. So I was hoping he would be a good guy to provide depth for us at least some point down the road. I wasn't really counting on him early in the season. But I like who we got. And I think we got lots of options out there, and watching some of the drills so far in this first week of practice. I'll tell you who jumped out at me so far on the offensive line is Yakiri Walker, who's not giving up that center spot without a fight, man. Tell you. And that means that's going to be
what have you seen there?
Well, like one, essentially in some of these drills, they're going pretty much live. They got the shell pads on, whatever. But like, for example, one time he was blocking Amari McNeil. I'm pretty sure it was Amari McNeil who tried to bull rush and do little moves like this. And Yakiri Walker just kept moving his hands, kept moving his feet, and really maintained a good base. And the guy who came to congratulate him, telling him he did a great job, was Lewis, the defensive line coach. Said that was I won't repeat his language. I'm not sure if we're supposed to say that, but he said that was a effing good job, man. That was a damn good job. So when you get the other side's coach to come and congratulate you. You're doing a hell of a job. And that also showed me that he's got enough size and strength and power to take on a big 300-plus pound defensive tackle, who wants to try to bull rush him and beat him. So that stuck out to me. And so that just goes to show me that he's fighting for that position and not just giving it up to Zielinski. So that's going to give us, good depth, and they're going to make each other better by having to work harder.
You talked about needing that love for the game of football, and one guy that clearly has that is Trevor Woods. He goes from 198 when he gets moved over to linebacker. Now he's 217. He looks 217 in person. It's hard not to respect kind of his willingness to put the team first. And who knows, maybe this will really benefit him and get him into being an NFL prospect. I don't know what his frame can hold with him still being able to have that speed at the linebacker position, but he's done everything they've asked him to do.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty excited to see what he does this fall.
Well, I'll address that frame issue. I mean, you look at the photos and you look at him in the video, and if he's 217, he could easily be 230. Guys, people think that by the time you're a fourth or fifth year guy in college, you're hitting your prime physically, and that's just not the case, man. Most guys that are the prime athletes are not really hitting their prime till mid-20s, 25, 26, 27. The testosterone starts coming in a higher level, and he's a guy looking at his frame could easily be 230, and he should get stronger and along with that faster and quicker. But I think what everybody seems to miss, everybody's focused on the weight, and they're just missing the point that the dude never practiced the damn position. He didn't practice linebacker. He didn't sit in the linebacker room. He didn't go to linebacker meetings. How in the hell are you supposed to play a damn position that you don't ever practice? You show up on Saturday and go, hey, man, I'd like you to play quarterback here. Okay, all right. You're going to look like shit, right? And so he's been practicing it all off season and spring and in fall camp. And it stands to reason he should look 100%, 200% better. Okay, so I think everybody ought to get off his back and recognize that the guy didn't get an opportunity. He jumped into that position because they asked him to. I don't really understand, what the problem was or what the reasoning was to play a guy that didn't ever practice at that position. But you can't just step in at linebacker after practicing all week at safety and expect to do any good. So there's technique at that position just like there is anything else. So I expect significant improvement from him. And then I think we're seeing a lot of good things from some of those other inside backers too.
Yeah, you mentioned Will Shepherd earlier. We were on the right side with our top buffs countdown voting. I had him fifth, you had him sixth. If I could go back and redo it, I'd have Trevor Woods a little bit higher on my list. I think he was around 15th on my list. I think he's going to have maybe a top 10 impact on this football team this year.
Yeah, and I don't think, before you see him in camp and see him actually playing that position and realize he's bigger and more experienced, it's hard to really make that prediction. Mm-hmm. And I specifically said when I ranked him where I said I was ranking him lower than I would have at safety because I don't know what he's going to do at linebacker. But again, I think after 1 week, I think we can all feel a lot better about him at that position.
Another spot go ahead.
Well, it just occurred to me. I was like, and then the other guys at that inside backer spot are all fighting as well too. You Hill Green, I think, has been out there a lot, and I saw Dante. Oh my goodness.
About Jalen Wester, maybe?
No. The starter from last year.
Levante Bentley.
Yeah, Levante Bentley. I saw him trying out for the Olympic boxing team when he took a swing at. I think it might have been Benson. I don't know, but and then I've also heard people saying a lot of things about Wester too. So I think he's another guy that's possibly in the mix there.
Lil Benson is a character, isn't he?
Yeah, yes. Well, and you like that, and you like the guy that can turn it on like that and then still be a decent guy off the field. But he's certainly got some size out there. I think we're looking pretty good at those tackle spots. I'm trying to think who else I saw out there at tackle. There was somebody else I saw at tackle. I saw some pretty good things, but
Wyatt Hummel, Wyatt Hummel got some
that's
run.
right. Yeah. Wyatt Hummel got some run at that right tackle, and I like what I saw of him. And I think Loadhole's probably going to bounce those guys around and try them at different spots and see who can do this and do that. And because your number two may not necessarily be the number two guy on the depth chart, it might be a guy at a different position. You move him in and move another guy up. So.
Yeah.
Making sure you see what those guys can do. And I saw somebody on the board today talking about they heard Loadhold yelling at the lineman about switching guys up. Well, a couple days before that, I heard Coach Prime talking to the defensive line with Lewis and Sapp standing there, and he said, "You guys are a joking team. I see you out there kicking butt in one-on-ones, and then you come into team, you look like a joke." So, both sides are getting talked to, and I think both sides are getting the message that they're a lot higher level of execution and such is going to have to be the case on this team.
That's the complicated thing about preseason camp, is that you do want it to be back and forth. You want both sides to be frustrated some days and
right,
elated other days, and there's no preseason game. So, on some level, it really is a mystery until you kick off that season opener, right? I mean, we can try to say that this is a strength, and that's obviously a strength. And by and large, you just see kind of the talent oozes out of certain guys, and that's how you come to those conclusions. But just how good the football team is going to be overall is so hard to gauge based on practice footage.
Well, I mean, if the defensive line looks good, does that mean they're good, or does that mean the offensive line is not good? Who knows? There's no way to know until you play another team. And then, somebody on the board said that what they saw was the defense dominating a team. I didn't see that. I don't know. I mean, unless you can watch entire series of plays, you don't know what you're seeing. All you're seeing is a play here and a play there. And, and a play here and a play there doesn't tell you a damn thing. You've got to see what happens play after play after play and throughout the entire practice to really have an idea who's doing what.
Yeah, and to add on to that, the thing we do know about this team is when you look at the resume of guys and what they accomplished at their previous school, and you look at how big they are on the practice field and how well they move, that there's clearly been a big uptick in talent at almost every position. So that part is pretty clear. It's hard for you to truly gauge it until they go up against somebody else. And I know Coach Prime is a proponent of playing a spring game against another team. That would be so much fun, but it's tough. You got to make sure that transfer portal window is not competing with spring ball if you're going to do something like that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing you see from this team so far this year is that this is a salty bunch, and they're an aggressive, get in your face, and nobody's backing down from anybody. And that's significantly different from last year, because I got to tell you, last year's team on both sides of the ball was somewhat soft to me, especially in the preseason. And we're seeing something entirely different. There's one play I saw come up on one of those videos, and there's two different fights going on the field. Now, it's not two different piles, two different dog piles, and they're trying to separate them out. Now, I'm not saying let's go out and get a fight and 15-yard penalties every place, but man, it's a gladiator sport out there. And if you're going to passively, meekly, just walk away from getting a cheap shot or getting beat or whatever, you're not going to be any good. And so to see when, back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s with Coach McCartney's teams, there's always fights on the practice field, and he'd let them get out of their system, now get back, and let's get back to work, But if you don't have that kind of aggressiveness on a football team, you're not going to be very good. So I'm enjoying seeing that this year, because I'm sick to death of seeing passive, I'll just say passive. And
how close are they to those Miami teams back in the day that had that type of swagger and aggressiveness to them, that would go into any building with a bravado that they were going to be themselves and they were going to beat you?
Well, I'm not going to take the premise from you, man, because that was us. Okay, that was us back in those days, and I know they got the national media, but man, there wasn't anybody in our locker room when we went to away games. This is our house. I don't give a damn where we are. We're here. That makes it our house. And the one time one of those Miami teams came up to Boulder, well, you know what? We brawled them on the field.
That's right. Yeah.
So we were just as tough and focused on representing ourselves as they were. Is this team anywhere near that? I don't think we can know that until we get into games, until you see what happens with other teams. It's easy to talk and swagger and whatever. But let's see what happens the first time somebody takes a shot at one of our stars and how we retaliate against that, right?
Yeah.
So we have to wait and see how we come out in games. Do we have a chip on our shoulder, like, this is our turf, I don't care where we're playing, and look to bury teams early, because the CU teams of the early '90s, that they weren't looking to win, they were looking to dominate and bury teams. So let's see what happens with this team as we go forward. But I do think that Coach Prime has that mentality, and I think that comes from the top. If your coaches don't have it, and Carl Durrell, man, there was no fight in the man. None. And so you're not going to get a team from his. You give him an NFL team playing the college, and they're not going to play hard, and they're not going to fight and be nasty that way, because that's not his personality. Not saying that as an insult to him. That's just who he is. He's not cut out to be a head coach at this level, because you got Warriors out there, and they need a Warrior as a head coach. So I think we got a good coaching staff in place for that, and I think we got a man at the top. Like Benson we're talking about, turns it on the field, and then turns and is able to be a decent person off the field. And that's what Coach Prime brings to the table here, is Warriors who can still be decent people off the field.
Definitely. That was a I don't want to call that a rant. That was a great breakdown there. We got to get you to break out that Freedom Bowl jersey that you wore on the CU Sports Jeopardy back during COVID-19. Do you still have that?
Yeah, I got it hanging over here. You want me to get it?
Yeah, grab it.
Hold on.
He's showing it now. Okay, look at that.
And so
how many years? How many years was blue in the color scheme? Because that was pretty short, right? That stretch.
Yeah, I think Fairbanks brought that in, and then Coach Mack kept it for a couple of years before he went back to the black. I think it was right after that year, actually. And the big thing about that bowl game was we hadn't been to a bowl game in, I don't know, 10, 20 years or something like that, and we finally got to that bowl game.
That's awesome. We should spend more time kind of recounting some of those days. And I'm glad you corrected me with my Miami reference by saying that, no, we were that too. And yeah, the stories of Eric Bieniemy are infamous from those days.
Well, like you and I and SD were up at the sink, and I was talking about, I was there that night when some idiot in one of those bars started saying stuff to Kanavis McGee and Eric Bieniemy, and I always thought that Eric got bad media on that, because quite frankly, what the guy said to Kanavis McGee, he got what he had coming, but we all stuck together, on and off the field, took care of each other, and I think that makes a big difference on a team. And I think, what Coach Prime has brought to the city of Boulder, I think it's a lot different now than it was then, and kids are different. But I appreciated what Shermer had to say about how these young guys are making him feel 20 years younger, because you got guys who make you want to be excited to be out there, not moping and crying about, but actually out there getting after it. And I think that's how I take it from him, is that they're young and enthusiastic and they want to make things happen.
Yeah, so. No doubt. Cool. Any other topics? I guess one other note I had here was that Livingston is not sure who's going to have the direct communication with him during games. I think they call it the green dot designation. Yeah. It sounds like that might actually change based on the opponent and situation. I've heard from enough smart football people that I trust that this new technology is going to be more of an advantage for the offense, because they're going to be able to find holes in coverage a little bit easier now, being able to have that communication. Defensively, it almost feels like, as Livingston kind of alluded to, could probably be a detriment if you're just yelling into the player's ear the entire time, right?
Well, and I think it's clear, on offense, it's obvious who it's going to be. It's going to be your quarterback, so that you can talk, and you can talk about, here's what we see from up top, and here's what you should look for on this play, and things like that. On defense, it's not so obvious. Like a few years ago, Nate Lamont would have been the obvious guy. But this year, I don't know that there is that particular guy who's sort of the quarterback of the defense. And again, like you said, against a predominantly run team, it might be your middle linebacker, but against a passing team, it might be your free safety. It really all depends on how you're scheming against that particular team. And plus, defenses are different because on defense, you're taught to communicate with each other from the snap anyway, right? Where you don't do that quite so much on offense. The offensive line does it, and I guess the receivers will call out coverages and things like that. But it's different on defense, where everything on offense flows from one guy, and defense is different, and everybody's got a job to do, and they got to do it. So I don't know how quite they will apply that on the defense, but I think it'll be helpful. I don't know. With a quarterback like Shadur, who understands the offense and reading defenses so well, I'm not sure how helpful it'll be, quite frankly. But we'll see how teams adapt to it and use it.
Can Shadur gain something by looking at his protection and getting more of a sense for kind of how the pocket evolves with this offensive line, or is it more based on what the defense is doing that this technology really helps him with?
Well, I think what coaches can see from the press box is so incredibly different than what you can see from the field. And quite frankly, you can't see a damn thing from the field because it's all one dimensional. It's all right there. And the far side is blocked by the near side guys. And your human vision is not equipped to really see a larger thing like that from down at the field level. Whereas all above, your peripheral vision can see these guys, and you can sort of see immediately upon the snap who's going where. And so that's why you have guys up top, and like you'll see sometimes on the sidelines, they'll still send down photographs, right? Or and now they're going to have tablets down there so they can actually watch the video right there on the sideline, and see what they see. And you can see how how does the defensive end attack this formation? How does the safeties and the defensive backs attack that formation? So I think there's a lot of ways you can use this technology. But again, like he said, you run the risk of overwhelming guys with too much information, and too much information slows you down if you don't process it properly.
The Buffaloes picked up their 7th commitment for the class of 2025. Late this past week, Zane DeSouza from Loveland High School is coming on board with the Buffs. 6'6", 260, really looks more like an offensive tackle prospect, but he wants to play tight end. And Colorado said, hey, we'll take you as a tight end. We'll take you as an offensive tackle. We just want you in our program. And every once in a while, there's a recruit that comes along that has just like a really good story, because Zane DeSouza played in the wing T offense there at Loveland the last couple of years. Didn't really have a lot of film showing himself as, a pass catcher downfield. And he goes out to Colorado's elite camp and starts working with a lower group, works his way up. And by the end of that day, he's a top Colorado recruiting target. So just a good story. And it just feels like whether it is at tight end or maybe he starts to see maybe that NFL money as an offensive tackle. I just have a feeling this young man's going to be pretty successful in Colorado's program.
Well, I get sick to death of everybody trying to make every tall guy an offensive tackle. I think it's silly and stupid. Right now, he's far too small to be an offensive tackle. So let's go out and focus on offensive tackles. Let's let the kid come in and play the damn position he's recruited to play and see what he can do. You don't have to make an oh, you know what? He's 6'6", 260. Well, that doesn't mean he's slow or not athletic. Let's put him out there and let's see what he can do. Or unless, hey, maybe I'm crazy here. Maybe we're so loaded at the tight end room, we don't need him there, right? But I'd like to see what he can do at that position, see how he runs. It's a full year before he gets here. Well, not a full year probably, but it'll be a while before he gets here. Let's see what he does and develops. Let's play him at tight end and let him be an H-back or whatever, see how he does in the blocking and see how he grows as he goes along. But everybody looks back on maybe 2 guys in the history of our program, Solder and Lepsis, and they came in as tight ends. They were great offensive tackles. Let's do that with everybody. Well, gosh, 2 guys over 40, 100 years of football, and that's the reason why we're going to do that. I don't know. I want to see the guy come in I think he's a plus athlete. He's a big athlete. Let's see what he can do. If he winds up at offensive tackle, more's the better. If he winds up as a great downfield tight end, like a Gronkowski, that's great too. So who knows? It's too early to tell. Like you say, he's playing in a wing tee offense, so it's not like he's getting used as a pass catcher so far. But let's see how he runs and how he catches the ball with somebody all over him. But I think it's a great pickup. It shows that Prime will focus on the guys that matter in state and can get them. One more chip away at the stupid national narratives or even local narratives against Coach Prime. And so I think it's exciting and a big deal. It was like, so that's 7 high school guys so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, hey, where's the mantra that we are not recruiting high school guys? Now we got 7. And quite frankly, given the way things work now, I don't see the point in bringing in much more than 10 or 12 high school guys every year. I really don't, because half of them are going to transfer out anyway. And why not go out and get a second or third year guy who's already shown something on the transfer market, which we've certainly done. I think that sort of, let me segue from that back onto our team this fall. And people talk about, you can't build chemistry from the transfer market. And I think that's wrong. I think we're seeing all kinds of chemistry on this team so far, first week of camp and working together and playing well together and what have you. So I don't know. We're still, second or third year into this whole transfer portal deal. So who knows how to play out, but I'm excited to bring this guy in. It didn't appear to me that he was going to be a guy interested in CU. So it does go to show that we've got some pretty good recruiters on this team.
Well, it's crazy. Colorado goes from the early day of the portal of not being able to get guys in for academic reasons to now being at the forefront of kind of, I guess on some level you could call it an experiment. I think it's going to be successful. I think it did take Colorado, that hindsight being 2020. I think if they just needed that extra offseason to kind of still weed out some of the stuff. It's not going to be done in one transfer cycle. It's going to probably take the 4 that they've gotten. And when it's successful, then all of a sudden Coach Prime is going to be praised for the approach. But until they get to that point, there is going to be that criticism.
Well, I think it's going to show this year. I think people just both close to the program and nationally just stupidly refused to acknowledge the depths to which this program had fallen. And it was not just the lack of talent in that 2022 team, but the mentality and the way they had been developed, because they weren't really. And one of the things that he talked about, Coach Prime talked about this offseason was, you had to get rid of some of the attitudes, because some guys didn't want to work hard and they didn't know how to work hard. And they had an attitude about being passed over by somebody else. And so you had to get rid of a lot of those guys without the right attitude. And I also think they learned, coming off of that 2022 season, it was surprising we could get anybody to come play here, because nationally we were a joke. Okay. And now we're not. So now we brought in an entirely different level of guys. And we had to clear out some of those guys from that first transfer class because they weren't good enough and they didn't fight hard enough or whatever. And so now this second time around, between the guys we kept from the first year, kept from the original roster, and brought in this year, we have put together a roster that I'm watching in practice. And, there are no positions that are specifically weak spots. And I just had to laugh at people talking about, 6 wins. We ought to stumble at 6 wins in our sleep with this roster and this schedule. Yeah. And I have to laugh out loud at people talking about this is a tougher schedule than last year. That's crazy, man. The first 3 teams are essentially the same actually the first 3 teams should be easier than last year. And then we get Baylor and Central Florida instead of Oregon and Southern Cal. And then we get a bye week. I mean, man, how nice does that set up? Right. I mean, so I think we're going to be very successful this year. I don't know how far we'll go with it, but I'll be pretty damn disappointed in a 6-win team.
Colorado's going to have 2 bye weeks that set up really nice in the schedule this year.
Yeah.
And I feel like we need to, it's been a minute since we've gotten out to a high school football game here locally. We should try to make plans to go see Zane DeSouza. You can come up my direction. He's basically a neighbor of mine. I'm really close to Loveland, and maybe I'll cook some food and we'll go check out a future buff. Sound good?
Yeah, that'd be fun. It'd be fun to go out and see who's out there we can go take a look at. But that would be fun. And I
And,
do
one-
like the
and
way. Go ahead.
yeah, one thing to add there, it's going to be more exciting this fall because Loveland is moving to a spread offense. So we're going to get to
Oh,
see
okay.
Zane
Yeah.
really kind of showcase his skills a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. See him out there running and catching the ball. Now, I still don't think Colorado high school football is all that great. So it's not against that he's going to go against guys that are the level he's going to see here. But it'd be nice to be able to see how he runs, and how he adjusts to defenses and whether somebody's hanging on him and things like that. So that would be fun. I would enjoy that. I also think, again, sort of bouncing off in a different direction. You mentioned the buys and how they set up nicely this week, and I think we have a better coaching staff to take advantage of those buys because last year we didn't do a damn thing with that bye week. In fact, we had turmoil. So I think we'll get more out of those bye weeks this year than we did last year. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No, you're good.
off the cliff there.
Well, I was going to mention that it's been about a week and a half since we tried Juju's Precision Pass Burger at the sink. Dane Barron, our board moderator, was there as well. None of us finished. I had the worst effort out of the three of us, but that was a pretty tasty meal.
That was a damn good burger, and the mac and cheese was good, and I was very impressed with everything they gave us, and that's what a burger should be like to be. I don't know if this is relevant to our discussion, but the best burger I ever had was at some place, and I can't even remember the name of it, in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, off of the interstate exit. Probably some chain that's only in Kansas, and was a Parmesan bun burger thing, and was just marvelous. And this thing was damn close to it.
Okay. I'm a big fan of the jalapeno cream cheeseburgers. There's one that's really good at Brothers Bar down in Denver. I think a few places do that. The Cherry Cricket as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty good one of those.
Cherry Cricket always had good burgers. I don't know if they're still as good now that they've moved locations, but they were always had good burgers.
They kept the recipes. It's still pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, but what I brought Julian Lewis and the Precision Pass Burger up was because the written offers are going out. Juju got his written offer from the Buffs. Some other guys as well have. I gotta say, it comes in a box with some CU stickers, and it's got Prime quotes on it. And this is a pretty flashy written offer. It's probably my favorite written offer that's ever gone out from Colorado. Have you had a chance to check them out?
I've seen it a little bit. I didn't see the box thing, and I think, like I'm 59, man. I've been around and seen it all, and had weird things happen all week, and my day job, and we look at that like, oh, that's kind of goofy and silly. But when you're a 17-year-old kid, that's pretty exciting stuff, to get that in the mail. And who gets anything? And I don't even know how to deliver it. I suppose they sent it through the mail, but you get a thing like that from big football programs, and I think that's pretty exciting to kids, and what may look goofy to us is pretty cool and upscale to them. But, for some reason that made me think also of, because we're talking recruiting, I guess, was the interviews with McKinney and Hodge and the other defensive backs, and talking about, it was actually Hood, Colton Hood, talking about learning defensive back from the best who ever played the game. And we talk about that as a recruiting pitch, but it really means something to these guys. I watched Coach Prime out there, like showing footwork to these guys, and like just a half of a turn of a foot makes all the difference, and learning that from the guy who maybe the best that ever played the game, I think is exciting to kids. And so getting something in the mail from Deion Sanders, even after all these years, I think is exciting to kids.
Yeah. I feel pretty confident in saying this, that the cornerbacks play that we saw from CU in 2023 will probably be the worst that position ever performs as long as Coach Prime is in Boulder.
Yeah.
And this is with Travis Hunter going to the NFL after the season, because at times Omarion Cooper was pretty solid, but he had lapses, and you're a Russian Cormani out there. This year, Colton Hood is better than any of those guys, I think, head and shoulders. and he
Right.
might not start for this team. So
Right.
I feel like, yeah, because of that, they're never going to lack for cornerback talent as long as Coach Prime is around.
Yeah, and you got Travis Hunter, who's a generational talent, and you're probably not even going to play him on the outsides at cornerback. You're going to bounce him around and put him on wherever the best guy on the opposing deep offense is, and it just gives you so many more. I mean, I think this secondary could match the 2016 secondary for how many guys it puts in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because I think that team put 5 guys in the NFL eventually, 4 right. If I'm thinking right,
4 corners for sure. Yeah.
2 safeties for a little bit.
Yeah, Tedrick Thompson. Yeah, you had
Chidozie,
obviously Isaiah Oliver,
a year later, and then there was the other kid on top.
Akella Witherspoon. Yeah,
right. So at least 4.
Afalabi Gulaguda, I think, got a cup of coffee in the NFL, but I don't think he spent much time in the NFL. He was their starter back there.
I might be thinking of a kid that got drafted a year or 2 before that wasn't really there for 2016. But I think we got guys. We got there's at least 4 guys that I could look at right now and say that these are NFL prospects, maybe more.
Yeah. Anything else on your notepad there? Anything else you want to kind of talk about as we recap? Really, I think in earnest the first week of preseason camp.
Well, I don't know. I think you're off your game. You didn't pull any of my chains or push any of my buttons or mention any of the usual names and stuff.
Is this when we talk about Dan Lanning?
Is this? As I would we'll give it a break this week. Okay. Yeah, we got to get into this season and come up with a whole new band of villains.
Yeah, I'm anxious to. I don't know who I put my money on. Are you a Mike Gundy guy? Does he rub you wrong?
You know what? I've always appreciated Gundy, even when he was a quarterback at Oklahoma State. I appreciate his approach and that he cares about his kids and he's passionate about it. Some people think it's a joke, but I think he's serious, and so I've always liked him. And he and Prime seem to get along well. So I don't think he'll be the guy. We still get Jiffy Lube Jay and his crazy wife. Yeah. So
I think my money's there. That's where I'm putting it down.
Right, his band of scumbag thugs. So hopefully we can hang 100 on them in their crappy little high school stadium. And North Dakota State, they're always a respectable team, and it's hard to get anything. They're a lower division. We shouldn't have a rivalry with them. The Cornholers, I don't know. Matt Rule seems to be a decent enough guy, but they're still who they are. And so, a massive tornado combined with a nuclear strike on Lincoln wouldn't be the worst thing in the world as far as I'm going. But
I'm trying to think who else do we have? Kyle Whittingham. You can't hate him. He is
no. And
you got to respect the heck out of him.
He's never been controversial, and I don't think there's anybody else at any of these teams that's really kind of got that sort of personality. I don't even know who's coaching Kansas State anymore. And I didn't have the schedule up here, but Central Florida, I don't know who their coach is, but I think it's going to have to be. It's just like last year. A lot of it was just sort of organic and happened as it happened. Like especially those first 3 games. And if we keep winning this year, that kind of hype will keep building, and we'll be on national TV, and we'll have the Saturday morning shows here in Boulder, and those things will just sort of happen organically. And everybody, it's like Shadur said, they can criticize them all they want, but we're going to be the Super Bowl for a lot of these teams, and the big game that they get. Some of these teams aren't going to a bowl, so playing us is going to be the closest thing to get to it. So we'll see. It'll develop organically. It's like any other rivalry. You can't manufacture it. So we got two. We got the Cornholers. We got the Little Brothers. They like to think it's a rivalry. It's not really a close rivalry, but I think we got some payback for last year. And I don't know. People get offended if I say things, about busting spleens and things like that. So, it's like I was in the Marine Corps, man. We didn't dance with people and give them, pecks on the cheek and stuff. So
this might be your best rant ever. I love it. I
was just trying to get out of the room clean, man, and then you had to start in. See,
I just mentioned two words, Dan Lanning, and this is what happens.
Well, and I was
But
trying to move on to it. Yeah, I was trying to move on and turn a page or something like that, get a fresh start. But I don't know. I think anytime and, in all seriousness, though, as long as we're coached by Deion Sanders, we're going to be right up there in the media spotlight, and so these things will develop and happen on their own.
I have a homework. I have a homework assignment for you. I'm gonna go a little off what you're talking about there. Play a Carl Jarrell press conference from his time at Colorado, and then go and play a Dave Aranda press conference at Baylor. I'm not joking. At Big 12 Media Days, I almost fell asleep at my desk because it was he had good points, but it was just the delivery that I just don't understand as a college athlete how I could get inspired by that tone. And that's a little that's way off topic, but that's just something that I thought of as we were talking about some of these coaches in the Big 12.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, and it'll be fun to get back into it. It'll be, I don't know, it'd be interesting to have our first game on a Thursday night, and we'll see what happens with that. And but I don't know. I think because of the heat between the next two teams we play and us, something's going to happen. Matt Rule's not really the kind of guy to talk trash and say stupid shit like some other idiots who live in the rainforest regions. But
early on, Matt Rule did make a couple comments, and I think he realized that he was coming off poorly, and he's changed his tune. Jay Norvell, for whatever reason, has not gotten that same memo.
Oh my God, he's doubling down and tripling down, man. It's just nuts. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like you're going to get into a fight for publicity with Deion Sanders. You're not going to win that one, And Deion's always going to come off with more class than you are. So I don't know.
There's part of me that hopes that they beef up security for that football game of Fort Collins. I kind of have a feeling there's going to be a lot of back and forth with the fans in the stands that night.
You mean between the CU fans and the 14 CSU people to show up? Well, they all going to band together and bum rush the bathroom at the same moment?
This is what I'm talking about. This is what's going to happen, and
hey, not me, man, because I'm a lover, not a fighter. You know me. I don't have a bad word to say about anybody. Come here, Dan. Let me give you a big hug, big boy. So,
but yeah, the Norvells are pretty easy to dislike. They make it pretty easy.
Goodness. Yeah, that even this kid got in a freaking mix this summer. So all three of them. But I don't know. I don't really pay that much attention to CSU. Did they ever have like a full stadium for any games last year? I mean, I imagine they will.
I'm certainly not an expert on CSU, but I think that it will be about 50-50 though for this game in terms of representing CU fans and CSU. So I think they'll largely get up for this game, and then you'll have so many CU fans traveling there that it should hopefully it will be a really fun environment, because I think especially with Colorado really not being able to develop a true rival their whole time in the Pac-12, you think back to some of those games against Bradley Van Pelt when he was the villain for CSU, and you had that hate, that animosity towards them. Those were fun football games, right?
Right.
And it helped that they were both, winning a lot of games back then too. But I think as much as we want to joke about the Norvells, I think that, it's good for just kind of creating that feeling of a rivalry going into that you don't always feel as a CU fan going against CSU.
Yeah, I don't think he's the guy that's going to turn it around up there or make a big difference. But it was a lot more fun when Sonny Lubick had them playing well, and we were both top 20 teams playing each other. But I don't see them coming back to that level. I got the schedule up now, and we had natural rivalries amongst some of these teams. Like we always had a rivalry with Kansas State. Will that revive? I don't know. It's been a while. We'll see. I think it always comes down to what happens.
I think Dylan Edwards going there is a nice start to that, right?
Right. And Utah is still a rivalry, and Oklahoma State was always a heated game. Back in the day, that was always a big damn game. I mean, some of the biggest things I can remember in the late 80s and early 90s was against Oklahoma State. Sadly, I remember Barry Sanders making us look stupid one year, but Kansas never really was too much heat with them because they never really did anything. But there's some teams on this schedule, now Arizona could still be a rival, I guess. I don't think they're going to be nearly as good as people think they are. I guess I didn't realize until just now that Arizona State's not on our schedule, but there's plenty of teams here. Plenty of teams on here that we have history with, and then frankly, what's fun to me is some of the new teams. I've never played against UCF or Cincinnati, Texas Tech. We've had some history with, but I don't know. I'm excited about it. I'm glad to be out of that conference. I hated being in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I think everybody went in with high hopes, and it
Right.
just never worked out.
Yeah.
And it really was just a lack of leadership at the top. I mean, the Larry Scott stories that are out there, it's egregious that he was allowed to maintain that position as long as he did. He was a smart human being. I give him credit. He schmoozed those presidents and got paid a lot of money to run the conference really into the ground. I don't still really have really harsh feelings towards George Kliavkoff, because I think that was a really, really tough position to come into, but he certainly didn't gauge the situation very well, and could have kept that conference together if he had just gotten all presidents on board with that TV contract that the Big 12 agreed to. And so, but yeah, I'm going to miss going to the Bay Area on a regular basis. I like the Pacific Northwest. I enjoy some of those road trips, but you get to the stadium, and aside from Autzen Stadium is one of the kind of the exceptions in the Pac-12. You just didn't feel that passion. And when we traveled down to cover the TCU game last year, the tailgate scene was unlike anything else in the Pac-12. And so to kind of have that vibe going back into the conference is what I'm most excited about.
Right. I mean, I think Oklahoma State has that kind of a thing going on. Kansas State has long loved their program, and Cincinnati has always been one of my favorite places. I lived in Lexington, Kentucky as a kid, which is just down the road. But I don't know. I'm excited about being in this conference. I'm excited about starting up rivalries with some of these teams again, and I think we're going to be a much better player in this conference than we were in the Pac-12. And I think part of let's be honest, part of our antipathy towards the Pac-12 is we sucked and we never did anything in it. So I'm excited. I'm excited about this, and I think we're going to bring a lot more to the table in year one than they think. I think they're going to get more than they bargained for. And just to wrap up what we started about talking about today, I got to tell you, after 1 week of fall camp, I'm even more excited now than I was a week ago, because what I've seen so far looks pretty damn good to me.
Yeah, we both got the juices flowing. This was a pretty positive podcast. I mean, until somebody goes out there and beats Colorado, it's hard to be too critical. I really felt like they made a lot of really good moves as a program. In our last show, I did put it as a B, just because I need to see Robert Livingston and Pat Shurmur as college coordinators for a full season to just feel like that extra bit of optimism. But it's fun to be this excited about a Colorado football team. I feel more confident again in saying that the floor is 6 wins for this football team, and the ceiling is yet to be determined. And I certainly didn't hear or see anything from the first week of camp that made me feel any differently there.
Well, I look back a year ago, and man, I knew for a certainty in my heart that we were going to beat TCU. And beyond that, I couldn't really say what we were going to do, to be honest with you. I just had that feeling about that game that we were going to be a lot better. But I look at this team and I look at this schedule, and there's no Oregon on this schedule. There's not even a USC on this schedule. Utah, I guess, is right up there at that level, but there's nobody on this schedule that we can't beat. I'm not predicting we will beat them all, but there isn't anybody that I look at this schedule. I probably look weird pointing into space on video, but that I don't look at and go, you know what, we could beat that team on a good day. Don't even have to necessarily have a good day. So I'm excited about it, man. I think it's a new start for us. We got some talent on this team that I'm excited to see play out there. We got some coaches that I'm excited to see how they develop their players, and let's go get this thing, man. I'm sick of waiting.
Yeah. Well, we had what, 2 overtime games last year, right? CSU and the other game, which we will not mention. I feel like there's going to be at least 2 more overtime games this year, just with the parity in the conference. I'm buckled up for some really entertaining football.
Well, and I turned 60 the day after the North Dakota game, so let's give me a good changing decades birthday present. Turn me into an old guy with a smile.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I don't have anything left on my notes, William. This was a lot of fun, just kind of going back and forth, a little bit more unscripted. Didn't have a whole lot of topics we wanted to go over, but as time usually does when we get together, we find a way to just kind of go back and forth and share our thoughts.
Yeah, well, it always works out well, and I think there's a good chemistry there, and I think that's why people like watching it. I guess I hope people like watching it. But maybe one of these days we'll do one of those 3-ways, get Matt Smith or one of those other guys on here to get us all going in circles.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, William, appreciate you as always, and appreciate everybody out there for tuning in.